Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is a special bonus episode where Steven's going to talk a little bit about the 2025 Cannes Film Festival. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week in the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a theater near you, except when Steven is in Cannes. Steven, how is it going over there?
It is fun, and I know every year I say that it's very hectic at the festival, but this year it is significantly more hectic than usual. And that isn't just a me thing. Like, everyone I talk to here says that of all the years they've been going, it is way harder to get into things this year, and that is creating a lot of stress on the ground.
Is it just they're selling capacity higher than normal? It's gone mainstream now? Like, what exactly is the deal?
There are a few theories. One is the lineup is just totally stacked this year. Like, every year there's something, there's a Wes Anderson movie or a Scorsese movie or whatever. This year there are so many big things that you can assume everyone is fighting to get into. We've got the Wes Anderson movie just premiered a couple hours ago. We've got Spike Lee. We had the Mission Impossible movie. We've got Lynn Ramsey. We've got Richard Linklater. The list goes on and on. Like, there's so many things that normally if you saw it on the list, you'd be like, oh, well, that is impossible to get into. Yeah. And this year, almost every night there's one of those. And that just means there's a mob of people trying to get into everything.
Gotcha.
The second theory, though, is I believe ChatGPT has empowered pretty much everyone who attends the festival to have a bot booking tickets for them. Because things will be available and, like, I will click book within, I'm going to say, like, a tenth of a second, and it will be gone already. And that is just the behavior all day, every day, in a way that makes it seem like there's just a swarm of people who have things automatically booking for them. So if you pair automatic booking with most movies in competition are ones that even a layperson would want to see. They're still obviously international art house people, but I would say it's like a 50-50 split between festival people and people like a regular movie fan would know. And most years it's more like 80% festival, 20% movie fan. So I don't know. Whatever the case, it has made it like wildly difficult to get into screenings, to the point where I have basically stopped trying to get into red carpets. We've talked a little bit before about how this works, where the movie premieres at the red carpet in the evening, and then there will be a reprise screening the morning after. And the way the ticketing system works is you can only book a movie one time. And you can also only have a time slot booked one time. If you violate either of those things, you will not be able to book anything else like that contradicts it, and you can't even see if it is bookable. Which means, so an example, let's say tonight there was the Wes Anderson movie. 4 days ago, I tried to book this premiere. Obviously, it was not available. I never really thought it was going to be. 3 days ago, when Tomorrow went, quote, on sale, it's free, but the ticketing system lets me use it. Yeah. I was able to try to get the morning after screening. Once I got the morning after screening, probably 2 days ago or something, I can't even know if it's possible to see the Wes Anderson premiere anymore. Like, unless I gamble and cancel my morning after screening, I'm basically just saying, like, nope, no red carpet. And so I've basically fully shifted my schedule into just default book the morning after for everything. And then, like, maybe I'll get on 2 or 3 red carpets just for shits and giggles. But in general, it's become a morning festival. And then in the evening, I just go see, like, random shit on the side.
I know, Stephen, that this is a bummer for you in particular. However, in principle, I love this as a concept.
I know.
Like, it is amazing.
You've always said this, actually. You've often mentioned that would be a much more chill experience, and you're not wrong. Yeah. I mean, I still try to get a good seat, but if I have, like, this morning I had an 8:30 showing of the new Richard Linklater movie, and I left my apartment at like 7:55 and got a coffee on the way there, which is way more chill than getting in a tuxedo and leaving an hour before the screening.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to recommend it, and the ticketing system means I have to be up at 7 o'clock on the dot booking tickets every day anyway if I want to, like, get the new ones that opened up. So I'm already forced to be a morning person. So it's like, why not have a morning schedule?
What's the, how do I phrase this? What is the latest you have spent in the morning after 7 before your 8 whatever screening, trying to finish booking before you give up?
I know. It's a terrible battle. I've pushed it pretty far because I'm on a badge called the March to Film this year, which is like a industry adjacent people, companies that have something to do with the film industry, including finance, which is what I'm here on this year. At 8 a.m., cinephiles can book. So theoretically, after 8 a.m., I shouldn't even try because there's like a whole other army of people fighting. But I've noticed that sometimes right at 8 a.m., random things open up because the cinephiles can now cancel their ticket too. So sometimes I will stay on through, I think the latest I've done is 8:10 for an 8:30 showing, and that was pretty stressful because I ran out the door and I still got a coffee on the way because I didn't want to fall asleep during the movie. On a good night, I'm getting like 4.5 hours of sleep here, so coffee is pretty pretty important.
I'm just imagining, so for people who haven't been to a festival, which is everybody who is listening to this, or a festival with us specifically, which is everybody who's listening to this, I have this thing in my head, which is Steven desperately doing something on his phone while holding a tiny little espresso just draped out of his mouth, just ready to fall on the ground. And I'm just picturing this.
Draped in my mouth like a cigarette in a French New Wave movie.
That's basically what Steven was doing every day in TIFF. So I'm just imagining that. But, I don't know if the French have to-go espresso cups.
Oh, they do. Yeah, they've been very good about that, actually.
Okay, nice.
Though I found a hipster coffee shop I go to, so I get my little macchiatos every morning.
I assume you know it's hipster because of the mustache.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So, Steven, we've heard a little bit about the chaos that's been around there, but you did get to see in some films. First of all, what's your body count so far? And second of all, why don't you just launch into how your feelings on some of these films?
So I think my body count is at 16 or 17 right now. I would need to do a perfect tally because at least one thing I booked was a Rendezvous with Chris McQuarrie. And so that's like counting in my spreadsheet, but isn't actually a movie. But yeah, so pretty good considering it's Sunday right now. The festival only really started on Wednesday. So it's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. 16? No, it should be a little more than that. Yeah, maybe, who knows? It's probably like 17 or 18. I've been averaging 3 a day, but I had 1-2 movie day that probably threw things off a little bit. Anyway, it's been good so far. I feel like every film in competition, at least if you asked me before today, I would have said everything in competition has been at minimum great. Every single movie I saw, I thought, wow, that was very good, which is not normal. Usually there are things that you're kind of like, oh, I see what they were going for. Oh, that was nice. This time the bar has been very, very high. And even in the side festivals, many things have been good to great. Like there are very few movies I've seen that I have even felt mid on, let alone actively disliked. Though I'll talk about a couple that I am worried about.
So real fast so that I can calibrate here. When you say at minimum great, what's above great? Is that just excellent, or what is great?
Yeah, I'm going to say like fantastic.
Okay, I gotcha.
When I think of something as great, it's like must see on the spoiler warning, basically. Okay. But that doesn't necessarily mean I would rate it like 4.5 on Letterboxd or something. There's something above great.
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure I understood.
Yep. Yeah. I'm not going to go through every single thing I watched because we are on a bedtime deadline and we're also on a melatonin deadline. But I'll go through a few of the ones that I feel like are highlights. I'll mostly just go in the order that I was able to catch them. Let's see. So I'm going to start with a film called Adam's Sake, or L'Intérêt d'Adam. Just pretend I didn't try to do that. I clearly can't pronounce French. So So this movie, it was the opening film of Critics Week. Critics Week is one of those side festivals that happens about 10 blocks away from the main events here at Cannes. It's something I've never actually attended before because it's kind of far off the beaten path, even though it does have a decent track record. Like After Sun was a Critics Week film, for example.
Gotcha.
So when I failed to get into the Mission Impossible premiere, I made a last-minute pivot and went to Adam's Sake. This is a Belgian movie directed by Laura Wandel, and it's a hospital drama about a nurse, a mother, and her young son, Adam. And now Adam has been taken to the hospital because he broke his arm and he seems a little sick. And the hospital staff have realized that he is malnourished. And so they suspect that the mother is to blame. But the mother is there with him and desperately wants to stay with him. Like Adam's inconsolable without her, and she is deeply stressed if she can't be by his side. So it follows this nurse who basically has to decide, how do I navigate this situation? Like, she wants to treat the child. She also doesn't want to deeply upset the mother, and she doesn't want to do anything that will make social services separate the family permanently. And so it's just a really intense drama. It unfolds in almost real time, and I just found it like very moving and emotionally complex, and there are no easy answers in it at all. But I went in knowing nothing except Adam's Sake was the name, and I was pretty gutted by the end of the movie. This is one that I'm very, very, very impressed by, and shocked that this is hiding in like festival number 4 of Cannes.
It sounds a little bit like a medical version of the Teacher's Lounge in a way.
Yes, it is very much in that vein, where it's kind of one inciting event and a person trying to do the right thing, but realizing that the right thing might actually go wildly out of hand. I don't know if you've seen anything by the Dardenne brothers, but I think this is very, very, very similar to their stuff too.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so that was a great one. I did just briefly manage to catch the Rendezvous with Christopher McQuarrie. I'm a fan of Christopher McQuarrie, but truth be told, the reason I attended this was because I felt like there was a 75% chance that a certain Scientologist would also show up, because this was happening a few hours before the Mission Impossible premiere.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he did. So I was treated to about an hour and a half of Tom Cruise and Chris McQuarrie just talking about their movie making process, how they set up the stunts in Mission Impossible, what their philosophy is in the future of cinema and saving movies. And I just have to say, like, if you told me 20 years ago that Tom Cruise would no longer be the laughingstock psycho and instead is like the mayor of Hollywood that everyone adores, I would have thought you were like crazy. But he really has pulled it off. And I found it so just inspiring to hear him talk about how he's rooting for independent movies. He sees him and McHugh's job as to make big tentpole blockbusters that will allow other movies to stay in theaters longer. Like, they'll pay for them. They used Anora as an example, that Anora was allowed to stay in theaters because other big budget things were paying the bills, basically. And they have a thesis that some movies take a few weeks to find their footing, and other movies need to be just massive crowd pleasers that can make enough money on weekend one that it kind of puts the distributors at ease. And so it was just really interesting to hear them talk about their philosophy, and made me be even more glad that they are doing their part to save the movie industry, one movie at a time. With that said, the one movie they were here to promote, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which is coming out next week for you guys, I think. So yeah. It isn't super early. And critics have all seen this already too, so it really isn't a Cannes exclusive anymore. All of that philosophy was mostly not on screen, as far as I'm concerned. This movie... So my ultimate review is that it's fine. Like, I'm mixed on it. I think it's okay. I would probably give it like a recommend with a caveat. It is like a 2.5 hour movie, and I would say 2 hours of it are long, clunky exposition, trying to tie it back together to every other Mission Impossible movie and give everyone their proper, I'm not even going to say send-off, just callback, in a way that, for me, as someone who is... I've watched all the Mission Impossible films, but I would not consider myself a fan of the story of Mission Impossible. I'm a fan of the aesthetic of Mission Impossible, right? I'm a fan of the action. I'm a fan of Tom Cruise doing crazy stunts. And so this was a long, sit, and there is a shocking amount of time where no action is taking place. I'm going to say there are two big set pieces in this movie. One takes place in a submarine. The other takes place on a biplane. The submarine, they spoke about at length in the Rendezvous about how impossible it was to film, how dangerous it was, how no one thought it was possible. Unfortunately, I don't think any of that is on screen, at least for me. If it were filmed in the volume, it wouldn't have changed anything about my experience of it. But on the flip side, the biplane set piece, which kind of closes out the movie, is maybe one of the greatest stunts I've ever seen on screen ever. So even though I think the movie is mostly a dud, that one stunt makes it worth watching. So it goes out on a high note, but it is kind of a slog to get through, especially because they're talking about AI, and that jargon is just not gonna land on my ears very well.
So when the last Mission Impossible was coming out, they showed you everything about the cliff jump on the motorcycle before the film. It was like, this is why you go see this movie. Here's the entire jump. Right. Here's what it did. Now they're not doing shit, at least as far as I haven't seen. But I have seen clips from the biplane, and I will say, to their credit, I can't tell what the fuck is happening in the clips that I've seen, because I know he's on the side of a plane, and I know there's a person flying it, but I can't tell if the person flying it doesn't know he's there or is working with him. So I'm excited to see however that plays out. And more importantly, I am totally somebody who likes clunky exposition. So I'm hoping
you might like it.
I'm hoping in a week's time.
Might like you might like all the callbacks to all the characters that they managed to kind of connect together or have reappear. I just didn't give a shit about any of that, but maybe, clearly some people love it. Like David Chen gave it a pretty rave review, I think. He might be the only critic I know who did that, but still at least one person seemed to really like it.
Well, Stephen, in a week's time, I am more than prepared to dive into debate, discuss, and argue with you about that film.
Yes, we will talk at length.
Either that, or it's going to be a real short episode where I was like, Stephen was right.
Yeah. And now we'll talk about something that, fortunately, we didn't hear from Tom Cruise while they were filming that movie, and that's The Sound of Falling. Sound of Falling. This is a film by Masha Shalinsky, and this is one of those movies that, like, now, looking back, I can tell you the synopsis. For the first hour of watching it, I had no idea what it was. And that, I know, sounds like a bad thing, but it was totally riveting. So, okay, the synopsis is, I would say this is a story about intergenerational trauma by, like, multiple women in a family, going from World War II era Germany to modern day, I think it's probably in Berlin. So it's following a bunch of different women. For a long time, all you're getting are kind of snapshots of different coming-of-age stories, and they feel really eerie and out of place. Like, in a weird way, I want to liken this to After Sun, because the moment you watch it, you can tell I am watching a memory, and this is sad in some way that I can't put my finger on. But that's where the comparison ends, because this feels like a sort of fantastical nightmare, otherworldly type place. Everything is just very constricted. It feels almost medieval when you're back in the old days in the mansion. You're seeing kids that are trying to make the best of a difficult situation, and it is it's very, very troubling in an interesting way. It's really hard to talk about it, because I think it is an unspoilable movie, and it's really more a collection of moments that, after you watch enough of it, kind of coheres into a broader narrative. But I feel like I've never seen anything use this language before, like this cinematic language. It just felt like a totally new experience for me, and it really feels like the director just took a camera and transported to this alternate universe and just filmed there. It somehow it becomes a very, very moving exploration of trauma and abuse without ever really being about it. I don't know if you would like this or not when you watch it. Like it's definitely not the sort of plotty movie that really tells you anything about what it means, but man, I was pretty stunned walking out of this movie.
Interesting. Is it based on a book?
That is a great question. I do not know the answer to.
Okay.
It
when
probably
I first
is.
Googled, I saw something that looked like the cover of a book, but then...
Oh, actually, no. I remember that the director said that it was based on a photograph. It was inspired by a photograph of basically different generations of women in a German family and the expression on their face. And I think they kind of, from that, decided to reverse engineer how might someone get this way. It's a very troubling movie. This is not the kind of thing that is going to warm your heart in any way. It's very kind of prickly and strange and unnerving, but wow, it just lodged in my brain for a long time.
All right.
A movie that I'm actually curious if you would love or not. It was called Two Prosecutors. This was a Russian film by Sergei Loznitsa. And it's the story about a independent, a prosecutor or an investigator, maybe you would call them, in Stalin era Russia. He isn't in Moscow, he's in some smaller city, and he's been called to visit a jail because a political prisoner there has smuggled a message out to him saying that he needs to talk to him. And when he goes to the jail, he immediately sees abuses of justice being carried out, or at least hints that they're being carried out. And he is a young prosecutor, so he wants to do something about them. He wants to bring it up the flagpole, call out injustice so the Soviets, like the Bolsheviks, can do something about it, can stamp out the bad apples from within their ranks. This is like a bone dry movie that I found, it's very darkly funny, but also extremely heavy. And it really just becomes a story about the absurdity of bureaucracy and systems that try to control you by covering you in paperwork. And I thought it was just, again, like amazingly shot. It just is a really, really beautiful movie. Very, very slow, but it's never remotely boring. Like there's stuff about it that really kind of, it really got me. There's another movie that was very off-brand for me that I liked quite a bit, and that's a film called Sirât by Oliver Lax. The premise of Sirât is a father and his son are traveling from one rave in Morocco to another rave looking for his long-lost daughter/sister. When this movie started, I was real worried because for the first 15 minutes, we're just watching people at a rave with a thudding bass line, kind of monotonous, very loud, like the whole theater was vibrating. And nothing else is really happening. You're just watching different people kind of in a trance dancing. It's clear that a lot of these are non-professional or first-time actors, like actual rave goers that the director just plucked off and asked if they wanted to be in a movie. Yeah. And I was very afraid that I was going to get an aggro drift type situation. But man, this movie goes places. Like, it turns into, at first, a sort of wistful road trip movie as these people, the father and son, basically find people who are willing to show them the way to the next rave. And then it becomes like a thriller and a nightmare and like a hellish psychedelic experience. This movie goes everywhere, and I audibly gasped like 7 or 8 times watching this movie in the theater. It blew me away. It shook me. It does things that typically you can't do in a movie and keep the audience on your side. I won't elaborate any more than that. And I was enchanted by it. Like, this movie is fucking awesome. I don't understand what it is. It kind of feels like a new genre, but whatever genre it is, I'm here for it.
Little side note real fast. There's an interesting game that I'm playing as you describe each of these films is Googling for the film and seeing whether it is somebody's write-up, a random film site talking about its existence, or just Wikipedia that comes up for the thing. Right. So it's interesting to see how much the zeitgeist has exploded for a particular film, or which obscure site is covering it. Yeah. So I'm curious about this one though.
Yeah. I should mention a much more straightforward foreign film, which I also thought was quite wonderful, is not Two Prosecutors, Dossier 137 or Case 137. much like Two Prosecutors, which is why I got it confused, this is a movie about an internal investigator trying to weed out, quote, bad apples in the system. In this case, it's set in 2018, and it's about a police brutality incident that happened in Paris. So you can kind of think of this like Les Miserables, but instead of watching it from the protester side, you're watching what happens after, like the procedural of what you do after a riot has occurred and then police brutality happened in response. This movie, it really is just a kind of methodical slow burn as this independent investigator tries to establish who was at fault, which police committed this, can they prove that they committed this, do they have enough evidence to support it, can she convince people to speak out against them, will the system do anything even if they have all of that evidence? And I thought it was just a very riveting procedural. Like the message is very clear and kind of identical to Two Prosecutors, which is that a bureaucratic system tries as hard as it can to keep any people on the inside from facing justice. But I thought it was just a really, really well done film. And this is the sort of one that like normally wouldn't be on my radar. Like there's always a few random French procedurals that you're just like, okay, yeah, that was fine. But this, like in any other year, this could easily be your Anatomy of a Fall. But this year, I think there's just too many amazing things for this to really rise to the top.
And the prosecutor in this one, I know you said the film, is in line with the other one, like message wise of the overall film.
Right.
The character who is doing the investigation, is this sort of like I'm a completely objective person who's just trying to follow the facts, or are they also like trying to show the brutality happened?
She is a former police officer who now has this job doing internal investigations. So she tries to be unbiased. But over the course of the movie, her sympathies start to kind of deepen as she learns more about the situation.
Gotcha.
Yeah, a really, really, really like clever screenplay. I hope this does come out in the States. I'm not sure if it's the kind of movie that would make it. All right. I've talked enough about foreign films. Let me pivot to one that you're definitely going to see because it's coming out next month or 2 months from now, and that is a movie called Eddington by Ari Aster. Do you remember the first act of Beau is Afraid, where it's basically what if Fox News were true and every anxiety anyone has about anything is actually happening all the same time? And there was some controversy that I recall around it of people feeling like it's being reckless with its imagery. People might not know where Ari Aster's sympathies lie. It's playing fast and loose with kind of doom loop spirals and dangerous homeless people. All sorts of things that seemed like, ooh, this dude is, playing with fire. That was nothing compared to Eddington. Like, Eddington, hell will rain down when Eddington comes to the U.S. This movie, I went in completely unsullied. Like, I actually didn't watch a trailer or check anything about what this movie was. I was like, Ari Aster movie, follow-up to Beau's Afraid, cool, I'm in. I don't know if you know the premise of this, but it is a Western set in spring of 2020. The inciting incident is the sheriff doesn't want to wear a mask and the mayor wants to make people wear them. This movie, much like Beau is Afraid, this movie is taking a bunch of kind of neurotic anxieties and making them literal. But here it's all of the things that were swirling in like the collective unconscious around the pandemic. So like masking, plandemic things, the law and order backlash to the Black Lives Matter protests, QAnon, the idea of Antifa and riots, performative allyship on Instagram. Like, this movie is taking all of that and blowing it up, and it is not being very delicate about it at all. I thought this was hilarious. Like, I had a wonderful time with this movie. I would not be surprised if many even well-meaning progressives watch this and go, ooh, I don't like what Ari is doing here. He's obviously making fun of a lot of right-wing things, but he's definitely making fun of at least performative left-wing ideas too. Like, there are characters here who there's one character who at the start of the movie doesn't give a shit about social justice, and by the end he's like giving speeches about how his own whiteness needs to be dismantled and he should be listening, and he's going to listen as soon as he finishes his speech. And like, there's a lot of stuff where it is so brazenly just making fun of everyone.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. I think it's an amazing kind of grappling with how it felt to live through that time in the same kind of paranoid way that Beau is Afraid is an amazing grappling of how it feels to be anxious and terrified and have the news just beat terrifying images into your brain all day long. But yeah, this movie goes to some wild places. I am here for it, and I predict it will be extremely polarizing when it comes out.
All right. Well, I am excited. Apparently the can poster is just buffalo running off a cliff.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything. That's the thing. I had only seen that poster, so I thought it was going to be maybe like an aliens come to a desert town type of story or something like that. But to people who feel worried about the message of this movie or think that it's being reckless or not clear enough, all I want to say is, if you want your lead character to be sympathetic or to be on the right side of things, you don't cast Joaquin Phoenix to play that character. So I think Ari Aster is tipping his hand plenty, but we'll find out. I can't wait for the discourse that happens when people start to see this.
Nice.
Speaking of things that I think are going to be a disaster if or when they hit the U.S., Sebastian Lelio, who directed a Fantastic Woman, which you and I both saw and liked quite a bit a number of years ago, he was back at Un Certain Regard with a movie. It's called La Ola, or The Wave. And the premise of this movie is it's a retelling of there were feminist uprisings in 2018, so around the Me Too era, in universities across Chile, basically protesting sexual abuse by other students and members of the staff, and basically saying, hey, we exist, you need to take this seriously, you need to make a statement. This movie retells that as a musical. And I'm
detecting a trend, Stephen.
Yeah. Theoretically, there's no problem with that. I think a musical can be a fun, subversive way to do this kind of thing. But unfortunately, I think this is the next Emilia Perez, at least if it gets enough attention to actually be distributed. Like, if it got picked up by Netflix, I think it's in for this movie. Some of it is just the musical element. You know, this movie has its fair share of penis to vagina type of lines being sung in ways that just feel... It's a sensitive subject matter, and this movie is not being sensitive with it. But my actual issue with it is that I just think it's kind of empty. Like, it's so stylish, and it's very well made. Like, it is, like, electrifying to watch. But it's pretty empty in terms of what it's trying to say. Like, most of the songs are talking about the lead character, Julia. She has a voice. She's starting a wave. She's starting a flood. She's starting a fire. She's speaking. She's screaming. Listen to her. And we don't actually like hear specific things she wants to say. It's like so busy celebrating just the vague idea that women are protesting that it doesn't actually dig into the trauma that it wants us to relate to. Yeah. And it's weird because it's self-aware about this point. Like, there's a huge applause line that happens late in the movie where the movie basically points a mirror at Sebastian Lelio and goes like, you're also a performative, like coward. Like, you're also not taking this seriously enough. And it does get kind of interesting toward the end as it unpacks that, but I think it's too little, too late. Like overall, I just felt like this movie was just a strange decision. A, to make this a musical, and B, when you make it a musical, to make it so like joyously superficial. I don't know. I think it is its heart is in the right place, but I think this is going to get skewered if it ever reaches an American audience.
Do you think potentially it was going for the skewering? Like, it saw that, like, sure, Emilia Perez got like a bunch of shit, but like everybody watched it because of the shit it was getting. Is this like a grasp at like doing the same thing literally and figuratively?
It's possible. I think the timelines don't add up. Like, Emilia Perez premiered a year ago today, so I think you would have had to make it very quickly for this to already be a response to that. I feel more like this is in a way, I think he's trying to wrestle with the contradiction of what it means to speak up as a survivor and how there's no right way to do it, and the media frenzy will always break you. And so, like, I think he wants to just show that frenzy, but he has so much positivity that he can only show, like, the joyous celebration, and he doesn't really spend enough time showing the rest of it. It's a really strange decision to me. But as I scrolled through Letterboxd, like, there were plenty of 4-star reviews. So I do think this could be on track to be Amelia Perez type situation.
I guess too, like, obviously I haven't seen or know anything other than what I've just reviewed in the moment. But like the whole point of musicals, right, is like, I can't say the feeling, so I will sing it. So like taking that concept of the meta level of what a musical does and making that the entire point of what it's doing, maybe that is something.
We'll see. It's possible. All right, let's talk about the new Richard Linklater movie. I'm not even going to pronounce it in French. I'm just going to say New Wave. This movie, Nouvelle Vague, I think. I'm not even looking at the title, so that's just my memory of the French word. It is about the making of the movie Breathless. Have you ever seen Breathless by Jean-Luc Godard?
I have not.
So it's kind of a seminal work of the French New Wave. The main premise, the style of filmmaking is what excited people. It was very much guerrilla style, shoot on the fly, don't worry about continuity, don't over-rehearse things, try to have things be spontaneous and more true to life. And this is sort of pulling a Mank on that. This is Richard Linklater very, very, very faithfully reconstructing the look and feel of 60s era France, filming in black and white, trying to make it look like the French New Wave aesthetic. And in many ways, it's a pretty fun exercise. You know, there's a whole cast of characters, some of whom I found recognizable, many of whom the French audience found recognizable and laughed a lot when they saw who was cast to play them. And it just kind of goes through the making of this movie, the kind of freewheeling nature of it. I was curious why Richard Linklater would make this, and my two theories are: one, he loves hangout movies, right? Dazed and Confused. Everybody wants some. And in many ways, the making of this movie was like an epic hangout because there was no script and no direction, and everyone was kind of figuring it out as they go. But I also think he just loves movies about time and the passage of time and trying to capture that reality on screen. And so he probably relates to Godard in some way. But with all that said, this movie is such a like straightforward biopic. It feels like completely devoted to just the point-by-point account of how this movie was made. Like there's a title card for what day of the shoot you're on because there were 20 days that Godard had to shoot it. And I thought we were going to, by the time we've organized the crew and got to the shoot, watch like day 1, 2, and then maybe jump to the end and keep going. No, we watch every single day of the shoot. And he reframes so many of the exact same kind of iconic shots that happen in Breathless, which is fun for a while, but he just keeps going and going and going. And the whole time he's doing it, he's just so completely like in love with Godard. Like everyone is just praising him as a genius, even though the movie makes it clear like he was a nightmare to work with. Like he would have been. I mean, he's brilliant and he made a brilliant movie, but he did not go about this in a way that would make him any friends. And it just feels. The phrase I used to describe it to a friend when I walked out after this movie was dad rock. This feels like the dad rock equivalent of like a cinephile where you're just like, you just want to hear the tune that you've heard before. And this feels like Linklater's just like, he wants to play a French New Wave tune. He wants to remember how great a certain movie was. And it's charming, but ultimately I feel like it was a disappointment. I think if he really wanted to be inspired by this invigorating style of filmmaking, he should have made an invigorating film that also has some kind of style or spontaneity. And instead he made the most like straightforward Wikipedia entry version of it, which, I mean, he's an amazing filmmaker, so it still looks like $1 million, but it just, I don't know, I was let down, and this was something I was really anticipating.
So 2 questions. One is, did he film it in 28 days or whatever it was?
He can't have. It's way too pristine looking.
Okay. And then the second question, is this basically his Saturday night?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is his Saturday night, his Mank, his, you fill in the blank. It's very much like Saturday Night. It's also a little bit like The French Dispatch, which, as I say it, isn't that surprising because that was also about that same group of film critics that made, like, they're playing in the exact same waters, I think. Like, whenever a character is introduced here, we see them posing as if for a still photo, and then the name, like the card under their face appears to say who they are. And so it's having a lot of fun of being like, here's a character, boom, here's a character, boom. And it's just, it's very cute and almost Wes Anderson-y in the way that it does that. It was a likable movie. Like, I was never not liking it. I just the whole time was thinking, okay, dude, when are you gonna have a point? I'm ready for the point. I'm ready for you to do something new here. And I think the closest it comes is the end credits have some cool visuals. And I was like, where was that for the rest of this movie?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to do 2 more and then go to bed. The next one, let's talk about Die My Love by Lynn Ramsey. Are you familiar with Lynn Ramsey?
I don't think so.
Like, We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Oh, no. That's the long-running joke on this podcast, and I'd never watched it.
Oh, that you've never seen it. Cool. Did you see You Were Never Really Here? I feel like you did and did not like it.
I don't think I saw it.
Elliptical movie where Joaquin plays a killer, but you don't really know that because you don't ever see him do the killing.
Oh, no, I did. I did see this. Yeah. I don't remember my thoughts on it, though. But yeah, anyway, I distinctly remember the opening the door and just having blood hit him in the face, like, moment.
Yes,
yeah, okay.
Exactly. Well, anyway, Lynn Ramsey is a very, I would say, cool, dark, stylish filmmaker who likes movies to be abrasive. I mean, we should talk about Kevin, or we have to talk about Kevin, is basically about the horror of having a kid and realizing that you hate them or they hate you or that you can't control them in some way. And her new movie, Die My Love, is basically like that on steroids. This is Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson play a couple who move to a kind of isolated farmhouse and have a baby. And the movie is just watching the disillusion of Jennifer Lawrence's, her happiness, I'm going to say her sanity. Their relationship is fraying, especially when a baby is involved. And I'm talking about this as if it were straightforward drama, but this is like not straightforward at all. This is kind of a batshit crazy ride where you are just getting into Jennifer Lawrence's psyche and watching her totally lose control.
Is it this mother?
It is, yeah, sort of. It's
just the non-biblical mother.
No, yeah. I mean, it is very dark. Both of them play deeply unlikable characters on purpose. Like, they give what I would say are very brave performances, especially Jennifer Lawrence, who's like fucking amazing in this movie. I should have known she had this in her, but Mother is honestly the only example where I think she's even done anything remotely like this. And even there in Mother, she's like the victim, right? She isn't the person being abrasive. She's the person who's trying to survive a terrifying experience.
Yeah.
Here, she is just like a stick of dynamite on screen. This movie, it is hard to watch. It really gets you into the headspace of someone who is slowly losing their joy in the world. You know, there's a dog barking incessantly for much of this movie. There's a baby crying incessantly for much of this movie. It is like, it's trying to make you uncomfortable before it explodes. And I thought it was awesome. I had a blast with this movie. So yeah, this is one of those ones I caught very shortly before sitting down to record, so I still kind of have to gather all of my thoughts about it, but I'm definitely a fan, and it definitely is going to be one that not all audiences are going to love, but I think the ones who love it are going to really, really, really love it.
It seems like this one, I see a Spain release date in June, but I don't know.
I believe, if I'm remembering right, I think Mubi just acquired it, so they haven't named a release date yet.
Okay. Well, I'm curious to check this one out.
Yeah, it's pretty damn awesome. And speaking of Twilight stars or YA stars more broadly who are cashing those checks to make kind of unnerving art house movies, I want to close on a film that I just caught up with, which is the directorial debut of Kristen Stewart, called The Chronology of Water. This played in the Uncertain Regard track, and it's one of those movies that I kind of had to break my schedule to find a way to catch because I had to know what she was getting up to. Now, you and I have seen our fair share of actor turned directors making their first movie at a festival. We've seen our fair share of actor turned directors making movies about authors at a festival. Patricia Arquette and Ethan Hawke both did it. It seems like a fascination. It makes sense. If you're a creative person, you want to get in the mind of another creator and showcase that creator. This movie is gorgeous. I loved The Chronology of Water. It's another one of those that I didn't bother looking up anything about it before I booked it. And I was just completely blown away by it. I need to look up the name of the person. Basically, Imogen Poots stars in this movie. It's based on a memoir by Lydia Yuknavitch, who was a poet and an author who, from what I can tell, the memoir is about her experience growing up as a child of abuse and then becoming a drug addict and kind of the reckless way she perpetuated the harm that was inflicted on her. It is just gorgeous. Like, it is shocking that Kristen Stewart has never directed a movie before, and this is what she comes up with. Like, it's fragmented, it's beautiful, it flows with a really coherent emotional logic. It's shocking, it's dark, it's provocative, it goes very hard in many directions. It intentionally resists the urge to let you just cry about the story. Instead, it really wants you to be challenged. Like, it wants you to feel all the complicated things that abuse might do inside a person, like the way it can make them hate their abuser, the way it can make them feel attached to their abuser, the way it can make them feel their own sort of violence and want to take control of their bodies in destructive ways. It was incredible. Like, my jaw was on the floor. Well, it would have been if I weren't wearing a mask. I loved it. Like, the poetry of this movie is just outstanding. And it made me immediately want to buy that memoir because I think I can only imagine much of the voiceover narration of this movie is lifted directly from the memoir. And if it is, then God, that is an amazing writer. And if it's not, then Kristen Stewart is an amazing writer because she also wrote the screenplay for this thing. Yeah, I loved it. Imogen Poots is just incredible in this movie. It's very similar to Die My Love in the sense that it's about an exploration of desire and a person deteriorating, and it has an actress kind of blowing up their image and daring to make a kind of wild, reckless, occasionally unlikable character. And it was just stunning. Like, this, I truly believe this is my favorite movie of the whole festival so far. Nice. And it's directed by Kristen Stewart, and it's not even in the main competition. So we'll see if I feel that way in the morning, but I'm blown away by this one.
Awesome. Yeah, this sounds like it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it's basically it's like Honey Boy, but much more interesting, and also I think with more of a feminine angle to it in a way that I think is really daring. It lets it explore certain things deeper than you probably would if you were talking about a man in the same situation. I don't want to spoil much of this movie, but man, it goes places, and all of them 100% worked on me.
Yeah. Nice. Does this one have a release date yet?
I'm not sure, actually. I have to assume it's getting a distributor because Kristen Stewart, right?
Yeah.
She's actually one of 3 actors who are directing their feature debut in Uncertain Regard. Scarlett Johansson and Harris Dickinson also have movies playing this year. So it's an interesting time. But man, I just love Kristen Stewart, as I know from trying and failing to get into the premiere of her movie. And normally, in Uncertain Regard, I can get into those. It isn't usually that hard to get in. This was impossible. I tried for days to book a ticket. Nothing ever opened up.
Yeah.
And that army of fans that she has, the idea that she is bringing them all to experience this kind of challenging art house, like intensely not just moving drama, but also like prickly, compelling, literary. I just love that she is bringing new people along for this ride and kind of, as far as I can tell, trying to almost educate her fan base or like teach them to enjoy other kinds of art. I just love it. I love that this is what she's spending her cred on. I think it's awesome.
And you love it, Stephen, but in the context of our conversation at the top of the episode, maybe this is why you can't book all the other things, because she's brought so many other people to the festival.
That's true. That might be part of it.
It's a good old monkey paw situation there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So was that the last film you were covering?
Yeah, I think we probably should stop there. I mean, I definitely saw quite a few more, but I think we're good. I think those are the highlights.
Okay, so then my final question for you here is, you've already talked about how, the minimum thing was like everything was pretty great. How are you feeling now, just with what little like titles and directors for things that you're seeing for the second half of this festival? Do you think you have front-loaded everything, or are you expecting or feeling like the next half is going to be just as great, if not better?
I think the next half is going to be just as great, if not better. I'm time delayed by like a day or two, but already tomorrow I have the new Wes Anderson, which I loved Asteroid City, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
The day after, I have the new Spike Lee movie, Highest to Lowest, and the new Julia Ducournau movie, the follow-up to Titan, called Alpha, that I think is, I mean, that's going to be something, whatever it is. It's going to be an experience.
Yeah.
I also, later in the week, have tickets to Sentimental Value, which is Joachim Trier and Renate Reinsva's follow-up to The Worst Person in the World. That's a movie that I rewatched multiple of his movies in preparation for this festival, and I am now like extremely excited about that one. I think that is my totally blind guess as to what wins the Palm. I don't even know what it's about. I just think it's it's probably his time. I think they've been on a roll lately. There's also the Jack O'Connell and Paul Mescal drama, whose name is escaping me for a second. The History of Sound. The Chronology of Water had me confused with The History of Sound. There's a ton of big movies. I would say the bigger draws are almost all ahead of us. I think Eddington, the Linkletter movie, and Die My Love were probably the only giant draws so far, and we still have probably 5 or 6 moving forward. So I think a lot more is to come in this festival.
Nice. Well, good luck to you. Hopefully it all works out and you get into everything that you're trying to get into. Those ones you already have booked, right? The ones that you just mentioned?
Yes. Yeah,
so,
everything I mentioned I have locked and loaded.
Yeah. So everything else will just be like a gamble of how you feel out the rest of your time?
It's always a gamble. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Stephen will be back in the U.S. soon and back to talk about the second half of the festival. But for now, Stephen, if people want to find you throughout the week, where can they do that?
People can find me at Threads or Blue Sky at sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com. You can also go to decodingeverything.com, where I just posted my first dispatch out of Cannes, where I reviewed some of these movies. I know you wouldn't know that from how much I was scrambling for details about the movies as we recorded. But, I wrote that like 8 hours ago. That's a lifetime in sleep deprivation years.
People should check that out. People can find me over at ChristopherInRealLife.com or ChristopherIRL and a number of social platforms. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com, where you get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so on Overcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from a track selected from artlist.io, or maybe some sort of jingly thing that I grabbed from some random canned video from their YouTube page. We'll see what it turns out being. But that's it. Look forward to another episode of these, or another one of these episodes in the future, as well as, of course, we'll have that review of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning once Steven gets back. Yeah, good luck, Steven, and take care, everybody who's listening. We'll see you next time.
Bonsoir.